Generations of people brought together to discuss topics you wouldn't normally talk about with others. The goal of the show is to learn by having some good, possibly heated discussions without losing the simple fact that it's okay to talk to different people with different opinions other than your own.
Well, here we are. Happy Tuesday evening, everybody. Here we are with Alex, Nick, and myself. Rubio is probably out at the lake, and we've got a couple of guys joining us here in a while. Before we came on the air, Nick was sharing a story. If you're watching from the DMV, you'll be familiar with the road, but it's on 28. Nick, you want to continue the story of the accident on 28?
Yeah, so I was Dulles. I was driving north towards like Sterling, towards 7, and I had Dulles on the left-hand side of me. And all of a sudden, I look at my rearview mirror, and I see smoke, and then I see this forerunner like swerve, and then he takes a 90-degree angle right into the barrier, like across every lane at 70, 75 miles an hour, right into the barrier. I had never seen a car hit a barrier that hard in my life. Like, that dude hit so hard, he bounced off twice. And I'm telling you, anything that was plastic or not bolted onto that car came off of that car. It was like a yard sale for a car. So I get home, and I've been home, I don't know, maybe an hour. And my wife gets home. She had been gone all day. And she's like, yeah, I guess 28's really crazy. Some guy on a motorcycle got killed. And I was like, well, that was it. I don't know what happened because it was behind me, probably a couple hundred yards. And by the time I figured out what was going on, I was like, I'm too far past the accident, man. And to pull over and try to walk down the interstate is just, especially on 28, is horrendous. But yeah, it was crazy, man. I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen a vehicle like take a 90-degree turn and just go into a barrier before like that, man. It was crazy.
It was funny that you said that. I was traveling north on 95 years ago. It might have even been back in my college days, and I saw a sedan, like a Mercedes, do something like that across 3 or 4 lanes of traffic into a Jersey wall and just slammed head in and was bouncing all over the place. And
Can
then
you hear
you're
me?
worried. Yeah, we got you, Craig. And then
Yeah,
you're worried.
man. Just give me like 10 minutes to get home.
Yep, you're good. And then it's like he was in front of me when I saw it, and you're just worried about that he's not going to hit you or she's going to hit you because you don't know how that thing's bouncing around. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah, I've never seen like that, man. That was last. So what's today? The 2nd of July. So this would have been last Thursday, the 27th, I think. It was crazy, man.
Far left.
Never seen like that before, man. But anything that wasn't bolted onto that forerunner just.
Yeah.
Wow. It was nuts. Exactly. I feel bad. You know what? Like I say, condolences to the family of the guy on the motorcycle. I don't know exactly what happened. But that forerunner, man, I know that guy or lady, whoever was driving that, her family, man, they're hurting as well. Because
I was going to say, that's going to leave a mark. Definitely going to leave a mark. Definitely going to leave a mark. Yeah. So why don't we get started? Craig will be joining us, pulling in. Jim Scrano may be joining us. I think our friend Rubio's at the lake. Hopefully he'll be chiming in probably via comments. The bastard. Anyway, let's talk about the so-called elephant in the room and the debate that took place the other night. I don't think we have to sit here and say what do you think how he did. The question is, the way I view it is, the Republicans, the Trump side, they won. They said basically proves our point. The Dems are running around doing damage control, but the core base of both are going to stay unchanged because you can see it in the presser today. They already staying the same. Where the damage control has to be done.
But he had jet lag.
Yes, there. Yeah. Hold on. I got you, Craig. Hold on.
Hey, did you see what I sent you?
Yeah, I did. Let me just.
Okay.
Frame it first, and then we'll get into it. The question becomes, it's where it's really going to be. It's guys like myself, who are neither Democrat nor Republican, sit here and say, okay, What do I want to choose? Alex, you're first. You're from the Democratic state of California. What do you think it should be had and all that?
So, some people, I've heard some people would really like to replace Biden with our Governor Newsom. He's young. He's supposed to be energetic. He likes to screw his campaign manager's wife, to his benefit. But I think the rules are that president and vice president cannot be from the same state. So, and no one wants to. No one wants to boot Kamala off the ticket. So Newsom probably isn't going to be the front runner. And some people want to keep Joe Biden there as a puppet for another 4 years. Okay, that's what I think. But after the debate, it proved to everyone that he's totally unfit to be our president.
And just so everybody knows, Greg chimed in, sent me a message offline prior to us discussing this. I'm going to put it out there for discussion. By the way, a news release just said that Biden nearly fell asleep at the debate. Excuse me. Maybe I have the same thing going on. I can't speak. Biden nearly fell asleep at the debate due to overseas travel. Yet he was at the campground for a week and changed. What the frog fart is our comment. Here's right. Okay, so he's right. If you read what has been posted as well, all his advisors said he was doing well through the training. The family was at. Yes, they were shocked. Some stories I've read, they were shocked at what happened on stage. Nick, what do you think? What's damage control look like?
Okay, so I'm a Republican. I'm a Trump guy. Everyone knows that. I wish that Trump would just learn not to talk. I think he did a very good job of that at the debate. I think somebody's gotten in his Kool-Aid and said, "Stop talking." But this. So I have if you look at this, and I want to break this down later when I do my show on Thursday as well. But when you look at the debate and the debate's over, it's done. Now you're right. The Democratic Party is into damage control. So here's one segment. One segment is if you decide to pick, if you go to August and you decide to pick, Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer or both, that's a president vice president run, right? The problem with that is that now you're bringing them in August, and that's roughly 90 days or less away from an election. And now you're changing everything up. Now, the problem I have with that is that you just proved for the second election in 3 cycles that you are willing to, as a party, disenfranchise absolutely everyone that voted. Those are facts, right? You disenfranchised Bernie and you chose Hillary. We all know why they did that. We all understand why they did it, and they did it. So now you're about to disenfranchise everybody. Now, if you leave that out of it and you go back in history to Lyndon B. Johnson decided in March that he didn't want to do the election. He was like, I'm going to drop out. And that was in March. And I do not know what year that is. But when he said, I'm going to drop out, Nixon absolutely steamrolled that cat that came in after him. And I don't remember the candidate that came in after, but when LBJ said, I'm done, I'm not going to run, that was in March. You're already in July, right? And I don't think that Newsom at this point has enough steam to beat Trump. So do you then stick a sacrificial lamb as the Democratic nominee, which would be, do you just leave Biden where he's at? Or do you pick, now there's talk that they're going to pick some older white guy from Arizona that's a Democrat in the Senate to be the runner. And they did the same thing to John McCain and Mitt Romney when they ran against Obama. Everyone knew they couldn't beat that dude. So then if you really jump in and look at it again, what happens to how do you disenfranchise your current VP? Because that's what you're doing. She's not even being mentioned in the conversation, right? So,
well, hold on. I heard some stuff today, Nick, that they're putting her into the conversation, that she's actually starting to step her game up, and they're thinking about, there are people in the Democratic Party that are starting to push for her, have our friends have Joey B step aside, as he likes to say.
So this is my whole thing on politics in the United States currently at this stage. We are a country of 350 million people. And you're telling me that Donald J. Trump and Joseph R. Biden are the only two dudes that we can come up with? That's the
I know. I know. Yeah, believe me, I said I've had that conversation with multiple friends. I mean, we are the United States, and they're the two. I mean, if I was
there, man,
if I was sitting over there in Germany or all the other countries, I would like say, that's the best they can. I mean, that's the best they can do, and that's what's sad about it, really. At the end of the day, so I think they've got a real, and I think them denying that there's a problem is a problem, because I think they're gaslighting. I think they're starting to gaslight all of those people who sit there and know what they saw. Because as soon as he walked on stage, he was walking like a feeble man.
Anybody that didn't know that guy is on his last leg and didn't find that out till last Thursday, right? That's something that most of America, not most, I would say 50% of Americans knew 2 years ago. And now it's just starting to come to light because he did it in a public stage in front of everybody.
But I think part of it, to be quite honest, and to kind of, I think part of it is that people didn't want to believe it. And I think there was denial that it was as bad as it was. Yes. But then you couldn't. And I think that has a lot to do with it. And when you have that, and then you get smacked in the face with what we saw. I mean, I truly believe there were some on his team that were surprised at how the gaffe that he made. I mean, was it you, Nick? Well, who was it? Was it you or somebody who sent me the video of that they didn't show? That's right after the debate.
It was Rubio.
Oh, the one where Jill's basically helping him off to go shake Jake. I have to say this: Trump walks completely off stage, doesn't shake the moderator's hands to sleep.
Well, there's a reason for that. Him and Jake Tapper and Corey Bush don't necessarily get along.
Yeah. Right. No, he doesn't really get along. Yeah, and with that side of the thing, that's a good point. But nonetheless, I also actually, and then somebody else brought to my attention that they read an article or were hearing things that people are starting to call for Jill to step up and basically do the right thing.
That happened in history, and I firmly believe that's happening now. If you read the Woodrow Wilson story, that's what happened to Woodrow Wilson. He had a stroke during his presidency in year one, and I believe her name was Phyllis, I believe. But she basically just restricted access to him, and she de facto ran the country, right? And that's how Woodrow Wilson survived his presidency was by that, right? Those are history things, man.
2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes.
Those are history things that I've dug into over the course of the last week.
Well,
my thing is how does this affect? And let's be honest. When Trump got elected and I was in college, so I witnessed this. I was going to school at Lindenwood. I was playing football at Lindenwood. When that election happened, the next morning we watched kids, teachers, school. I'm telling you, man, I was in a college. It was an NAIA college, but it was a college down there. It was a university. Tests were canceled. There was notifications about how you could go get counseling. And so my thing is nothing changed. The next day, nothing changed. Nothing changed in January when he took office. He didn't affect anyone's real day-to-day life. There may have been some things that better. Some prices got cheaper. He worked some deals. But in the grand scheme of things, the American life doesn't change. But I think that politics is so polarized these days that it affects the mental health of a ton of people in this country. And that in itself bothers me.
Right. Well, on that note, Alex, anything left to talk about on the debate? Anything to add?
Well, I think. I mean, just continuing what Nick just said. I think some young kids, I don't know, they made to believe kind of that they're too sensitive. They need safe spaces, safe rooms. If anything happens that they don't believe in, they need some kind of counseling. It's all about being weak, in my opinion. Okay, and I'm not saying you don't need counseling at all, but after like some election or some other minor thing, if you need a safe room to hide from Trump's presidency, it's a big trouble.
Right.
It's a bigger mental issue than Craig can fix, for example. Okay, in my opinion.
Greg, anything to add on the debate topic? If not, we're going to go to break, and then when we come back, we will talk about the fun statistic and piece that we found out about our friends up north. Anything? All right, we are out. We'll see everybody back in 60.
This tech tip is on how to use Public Data Check Review. Public Data Check is a data broker that posts personal information online. To find out what information Public Data Check has about you, number 1, go to publicdatacheck.com and search for your listing. Number 2, check on your name and fill out the information. Number 3, they will use your email information to sell ads to their database and send you email. To avoid this, I recommend using a disposable email address like a mask email from Blur. To opt out of Public Data Check. Number 4, once they have sent you your report, send them an email with the information that they had, such as your name, address, and age, and request that the information be removed from their website. Do not send information that they do not have already, and if the information they have is incorrect, use it anyway. Number 5, after this, it is unclear how long it will take them to remove your information from their site. Be patient and persistent. This tip for a great show called Decade is brought to you by Alex on Tech.
Thank you, Alex, very much for that great tech tip. And if you need any more tech tips, please feel free to reach out to Alex. You can reach Alex at how can they reach you, Alex, if they need to get more tech tips?
Well, it's basically alexontech.info.
Alex. What did it say it again?
alexontech.info.
alexontech.info. Thank you, everybody, for watching Facebook, LinkedIn, X, formerly Twitter. Please remember to like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. We now have Jim Scarano in from a long day of working, 9-hour shift at the golf course. Oh, I'm so sad. 9-hour shift at a golf course. Anyway.
Sorry for your freaking
I'm sorry we don't all have high.
You poor thing. Oh,
God. Oh, we go.
The horror that you must have saw today.
Look at the tan he's sporting. Anyway.
Listen, I'm just glad that 9-hour today job got me a little late for the show because I don't think I could have handled the first category.
Oh, I'm sure, man. Those nerve-wracking bitches that don't replace their divots, and you got that one dude who's building a cruise missile. Those little bastards that play ZZ Top out in the golf course.
Exactly. Anyway,
no, it's
all right.
I love my summer job. Hey, listen, I got a favor to ask. If it's okay with all the Decadians and the new Rubio up there. Ed, I love you as host, by the way. I love these shows without Rubio. Sorry, buddy. I hope you're out.
Wow. Let's see him spring up real quick. He's going to spring into the.
I can't believe he hasn't commented yet. Did he comment at all?
He's out. He's probably drunk at One Shot Charlie's. There's a free plug.
He's in Harrison, right there by Coeur d'Alene Lake. It's freaking gorgeous.
Right. He's in
I would have thought he would have been all over Nick's comments, throwing fuel on the fire. Sure.
Yeah.
During the debate, it was a constant text with him.
Yeah.
We've talked already.
Hey, did you see that comment? Wouldn't it be cool if we plan it, say in the next 2-3 weeks, where all of us are at our favorite freaking bar, right? And we do the show from the bar. Of course, Chris and I will get together and drive up in tandem, do an overnight thing up in Coeur d'Alene. That's a whole lot of suffering, by the way. And do it from there. We include the bartenders, the patrons, not the patrons, I'm sorry, if the owner's there and say, hey, do you want to be part of something kind of cool? We got a group of guys that are pretty awesome. We're badass at what we do. We're experts in our craft. That'd be a kick-ass way to promote this thing, man.
Yeah, because actually I could probably, as crazy as this sounds, I could drive up to Ocean City or thereabouts, and we could do something at the shore or something.
Nice.
For 1 week, we could push it.
Where are you going to stay? Where are you going to sleep?
See your studio? I don't take up much room, man.
You could.
I was about to say, you can put
shit
him
out back. It's a perfect little-
No, you have a koi. Your koi. I could sleep in your koi pond.
Yeah. Hey,
That's
listen,
why
we
your
can
koi
start
pond.
tonight, Craig. My daughter's going out at midnight because she's 20 years old and 364 days and 50 however many hours, So
Oh, nice. 21.
Yeah,
but
a friend of mine, his daughter turned 21, technically at 3 a.m. And he's like, you want to come out? I was like, no, I don't do that shit no more, man. Sorry.
No.
not unless somebody needs a ride home and you want me to be an Uber driver. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I did that crap in college, and I did it right before I made sergeant in the Army. I was like, nope, it's time to grow up. So no, I'm good.
Well, anyway, my favor
What
is
is your favor?
my favor is there's an outside chance my sister Gloria, who, if you don't know, Nick, is probably our number one fan. No, maybe not. We got a couple.
Her and Nanamona are two top
Who
fans.
is Nanamona? Who is she?
Go ahead, Ed.
That is hold on. That is God.
Somebody related to Rubio.
It's his mom, isn't it?
Yeah, but she's like on every show.
It's Jenna's mom.
Jenna's mom, right?
Oh, okay.
Jenna's mom.
Yeah.
Jenna's mom.
She literally watches everything.
Oh,
Yes.
she's the number one fan. My
she's
sister Gloria might be like number two, but anyway, I was like, look, I don't know, how many people we're going to have on. I said, what are you doing? I was just talking to her on the phone. I just got home from work trying to deglaze and get on camera and get some water in me. And she's like, I shared the StreamYard link. I don't know, Ed, would that be enough for her to get on?
Yeah. All she has to do is click and I'll see her if she shows up.
Yep.
If she clicks on it, Gloria, if you're out there, we'd love to have
Come
you.
on in. Come on in.
All
All
right. Next topic. Okay, Craig. Why don't you share with our fans watching all over the world what got this started, what you shared with all of us this week, like between this show and last, about assisted suicide. And stuff. Share that first.
Okay. Nick and I had a phone call, and we gotta do a recording when Nick and I do a phone call. All right. Because this shit's epic. He and I will go off, and we don't go off on tangents. We were like, what in the frog fart are we doing here, people? You got Canada, you got the Netherlands, you've got Luxembourg. The list goes on, where these countries are adopting self-inflicted suicide. Now, they're not calling it suicide. Here's the twist that pisses me off. They're calling it an end-of-life choice. I remember years ago, it's not a tangent, it brings up to this topic, where I was teaching suicide prevention to a bunch of middle schoolers, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, right, on a military base, and you got 99% dependents in the school. The principal said, Craig, I want you to teach the class. However, I don't want you to use the word suicide. I was like, oh yeah? What do you want me to use? She's like, unalive. I was like, why are we redefining words? That's insane. So we did a survey.
Education.
It's insane. I said, do a survey. Ask all the kids, every single kid, one question. Do you know what suicide is? Yes or no? It came back 100% of the kids that responded knew what suicide is. I was like, we don't need to redefine what they already know. We need to educate them so they don't do it. So this stuff, this end-of-life choice is insane. I'm going to go to a website right now, and I'm going to read to you what they use, okay? And this is across the globe. It's going to blow your mind. Are you ready? Here we go. So this comes from the National Library of Medicine. So this is a bona fide website. And here's what happens. All right, results, yada, yada. Medications, right. Why did it go to the top?
What are you saying? This is what how they're.
So
they're literally taking their last pill. Hey, Nick, go ahead and talk about it while I'm getting back to the website.
So got I read a story a couple months ago about a 28-year-old girl in Canada that had suffered from, this is her words, not mine. She suffered from depression and ADHD, and she couldn't take life anymore.
What do you mean suffered from ADHD?
Go ahead, keep going, keep going.
She had ADHD and she suffered from depression. I have ADHD. I took Adderall for years. I just don't like the side effects. I don't take anymore. But regardless, she had ADHD, was diagnosed with ADHD, and suffered from depression. So she's like, I don't want to live anymore. 28 years old. So MAID is something assisted in dying, in death. What does MAID stand for?
MAID?
Yeah.
Man, it's insane that they actually made up an acronym that makes medical assistance in dying.
Yes. So she gets to give you a death date. So I kind of wanted to dig into MAID a little bit more. And I in my thought process of digging into it, I came across a young, she's probably in her 30s, Kelsey Sheeran. She is a former Canadian soldier who worked with Canadian SOF, who went to Afghanistan and deployed as a cultural support team. And she's got a podcast called Brass and Unity. She's got an awesome book. I've read it. And she started digging into MAID. And what she found out was there's a drug. So first off, she's like, why are we allowing this? So in Canada, you just have to have one psychologist say, yes, you are of sound mind. And then a doctor say, yes, we will give you an end of life date. And then that's what they do. Like, hey, man, July 4th, 2024 is your end of life date, Jim. We're going to bring you into a hospital. We're going to give you a paralytic, and they're going to shove this drug into your arm, and you're going to slowly drift off to sleep while your friends and family are there. And that's it, dude. We're going to delete you off the planet.
Who thinks that's right? I mean, that's
do you want to know?
Do
you want to know? Here's the countries. I got the countries right here. Euthanasia, which means they're giving you the vaccine. It's going in your freaking arm. It's happening in the moment. That's in Belgium, Canada, Colombia, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Victoria, Western Australia, Tasmania in Australia. Physician assisted, which is a pill. Now, which we talked about the pill issue. It's legal in Austria, Belgium, Canada, Germany, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Portugal, Spain, Switzerland, some parts of the United States. And the constitutional courts that have legalized assisted suicide, Colombia, Germany, and Italy. So here's the twist. If you get the vaccine, and Nick and I are chomping at the bit at this, if you get intravenous, it goes in your arm. It's instantaneous. However, the intravenous vaccine is a combination of the following medications. Are you ready? They are. Damn it, I just lost it. Sorry. They are 10 milligrams of midazolam, which is a benzodiazepine, 1,000 milligrams of propofol, okay? 200 milligrams of rocuronium, okay? So all of these are designed to do these things. Are you ready? Get you relaxed. So it's no different if you're getting like a lower GI inspection or upper colonoscopy or upper endoscopy, or if you're getting a surgery. They always give you medication to completely relax the body to stable the heart rate. Right, that's a normal benzodiazepine. That could be lorazepam, and the like. Okay, those are very common medications. In fact, 1 milligram of, say, lorazepam, another benzodiazepine, would take me and Nick to sleep for at least 8 hours. 1 milligram. All right, I weigh 215 pounds. Nick weighs, he's bigger than that. But my point is, one milligram will put you to sleep. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jim, what's your question?
Why is it called a vaccine?
Because it's intravenous.
Okay.
They're calling it an end-of-life choice, so it's like it's your last vaccine. That's how they're wording it. All right. Oh. And it's instantaneous. It takes seconds.
Trying to soften the blow there. Vaccine.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, a combination of those drugs are a muscle relaxant. Okay. It's also an organ relaxant. Nick, do you want to do this part about the lungs? What happens? Go for it.
So Kelsey did a podcast with I forget his name, Jordan Peterson. And she did a Freedom of Information Act about assisted suicide. And the only real Freedom of Information Act she could get was death penalty people that have been given lethal injection. And they found that 85% of people that have been given lethal injection, their lungs were full of water. And they drowned. They didn't die peacefully. They drowned. So she did some. So she did some research on the drugs that they're giving in MAID. So you're given a paralytic, right? So your family's all around you. This is your end of life date, and people are holding your hands, and they shoot you with a paralytic. Well, we've all seen movies, right? And this is how it really works. If you get a paralytic, you can't scream, you can't move. You're awake, you're completely alert, but you can't do anything. You're paralyzed. And so anything that's going on in your body, you feel all of it. Well, then when they give you that 1,000 milligrams of propofol, you spend the next 10 minutes of your life drowning to death. So your family
lungs
it causes
100%, dude. Yeah. So the catch is that she's finding like you're going through this horrible, painful experience, but you can't say anything, and your family and friends think you're dying peacefully. Hold on, it gets better. If you don't use the injection, the intravenous drug, but you decide to take the pill, it can take 2 to 3 days to kill you. So basically, you're drowning consistently for 3 days with a paralytic in you.
It causes a how do you say, a sustained pulmonary edema. The lungs will basically absorb all the water in the body, and it fills up slowly. So imagine if you're behind the car. So what they think is happening is I'm going to sit in my most comfortable chair. I can't do it anymore. I've got ADHD. They told me I had OCD. Oh my God, I'm a veteran. I've got PTSD. And I'm 22 years old. This is the key point. I'm 22 freaking years old. I'm going to take this dope and I'm going to sit in my comfortable chair, and you guys are going to watch me fade off and just go to sleep. It's bullshit. It is probably, it's a suffering. It's days of suffering. It's insane. It's insanity. Now, there's a flip side of this coin. Okay, and none of us have a terminal illness, right?
Not that I know of.
Thank you. So we can't
just knowing Rubio, is that considered a terminal illness?
That's a side effect of Rubionesis.
Okay.
But
I don't know. Okay, so that's not terminal.
I can't speak to the folks that have a terminal illness. I can't. I've never had a terminal illness. Can I empathize with a person that's 90 plus years old? They've lived an amazing life, and the pain is overwhelming, and there's nothing that gives them comfort. I've never experienced that. I empathize with it, but in my line of work, this is not how we take care of people when they're in their 20s. When they say, especially, this is the twist. I've read both the National Suicide Prevention Plan for the United States, the Canadian Suicide Prevention Plan, or their Suicide Prevention Plan for their country. And I was talking to Nick about this. It's filled with fluff, but when you get to MAID, they are so detailed on how this is supposed to work. When you get to how you're supposed to treat people, it's nothing. It's fluff. It's BS, man. It's a bunch of tap dancing, and some kid just started writing like crazy, like, oh, this is going to be my best production ever. They're going to love it. It's insane. But when they get to MAID, for some reason, they are down to the wire on how to end your life because it's just too freaking hard, man. I'm 21 years old and I can't find a job because I'm entitled, except all this crap. And a physician says I have a mental illness. And there's the twist with this. Oh my God, this blows my mind. You have to be evaluated by a competent psychologist to state that you are of sound mind to take your own mother freaking life.
That's contrary.
Thank you.
It's one sentence you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
Because if you want your own life,
dude,
I mean, it goes against everything that the missions. It goes against. It's like you and I talk.
Correct.
This goes against, and Jenna and everybody that is part of our group have said this goes directly against what our initiative is to try to stop middle-aged men's suicide, but at the same time stop suicide in general. And now there are countries, this one included, giving people who are upset. If you're of sound mind, so if a person is of sound mind, would they take their own life?
That's the $1 million
twist, man.
I learned logic. That's not logical to me. That falls outside the world of logic.
You're sane.
It's
very, very sane.
Thank you.
Kill yourself.
It's
That's insane. Just saying that is insane.
It is bonkers.
Right.
It is unbelievable
Now-
bonkers.
Now I agree with what you said though, Craig. You know, when you get up to you're 90 plus, you're 95, you're 100, you've got maybe you're not even terminal, you're just in a lot of pain, and your end of life is coming. That's to me, that's kind of a different story for another time. That's a different category.
Even Chris said it. Chris Rubio made it very clear. That's a slippery slope, and I'm thinking he said that because we have never had a terminal illness. We have no idea what that feels like. I'm sorry.
Right.
Keep going. Keep going.
No, but what I'm saying to Nick's point, when you have 20-somethings who are just in the prime of their life, struggling with something, that has to be a scream to us, society, who know things that they need help. That something is wrong. Alex, what do you think about all? What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I agree about the 90-plus-year-old. My dad passed away a couple years ago. He was almost 91, and he had lung cancer, and he was in hospice for the couple weeks prior. Before he died, and they made sure he died in peace and comfortable and stuff. Because, we knew nothing could have been done to save his life, and he lived a long life. It was a different story. But somebody who is in their 20s and have minor psychological issues, it has to be a psychiatrist and psychologist treated him or her, not somebody saying, okay, you want to die? It's okay to die. That's just crazy. I would never understand that. Okay. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Go ahead, Craig.
You know what it tells me, and it breaks my heart. It's the professionals that have gone to school to get certifications, to get licensed, et cetera, are basically saying you're too much work. I don't want to deal with you. Oh, and I've got a government that's backing me. So my government is saying that you are not worth the effort. Oh, and by the way, let's look at the economic impact. If we eliminate 15% of the population of a certain age group, okay, inflation will go down. I found an article, and as soon as I clicked on this article and I was getting ready to pull it down, I had left to go do something, right? Came back, the article was gone. The article was talking about how this is being used to reinforce the financial state of whatever government is approving it. They're convinced that if you eradicate these people, that the inflation rate of those countries I had listed just prior, which are all suffering with massive inflation, by the way, will somehow increase their net worth as a country. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? So you're giving up on your citizens? You're not only giving up on your citizens, you're investing monies to let them do this. Oh, by the way, it's an out-of-pocket cost because there's not an insurance company in the world that's approving it.
Yeah,
not
for sure.
Here in this country, you're correct that because we have
in our country. Yes, I'm talking about our country.
Yeah. But if you go to Canada, they have a universal healthcare system up there, which is failing fast. But regardless of that, it's covered under that, right? And that you have to wonder, right? And in a lot of European countries that are paying 60 to 70% base tax, have a lot of that Medicaid and stuff that's there in universal healthcare. And you have to wonder if that's the stressor that's becoming this is like, hey, man, we already have huge lines. This is this healthcare system is not as good as we thought it was going to be. How do we stop some of this? How do we get, is that part? I can't, I'm trying to see how you as a leader in a country would come to that conclusion that this is the right thing to do. And I cannot rationalize that anywhere in my mind.
Now, here's a crazy twist and a causality, guys. I'm sorry. Here's the causality. This falls into my line of work. Imagine a family member who has experienced the loss of suicide of other friends and family members. And now you've got somebody that you looked up to, an uncle. And say the uncle's only 40-something years old, but you've looked up to this person since you were born, you went together, or whatever. Now you're getting exposed to somebody who's willingly doing it because life is too hard. I'm not talking about terminal illness. And Jenna had brought this up in a text. Imagine somebody who's been exposed to so many suicides in their life and in their family, and now somebody's willingly doing it because the government backs it. It's okay, and it's legal. And they're not calling it suicide. They're calling it an end-of-life choice. It's being categorized. The CDC said that if it was rampant in the country, they would categorize it as other death. not suicide.
Wow.
We're redefining this insanity. I'm sorry, Jim. Go for it, brother. I'm sorry.
No,
I had
keep
to.
talking for a second.
I was just gonna say, let's do this, guys. This is great stuff. Let's take a break here. I'm gonna run a video. When we come back, we're gonna kind of continue on this topic. Let's talk about if somebody's having a struggle, how can they approach family or friends to ask for help? And let's say even if they're in this made, I hate to now every time I say the word made, I'm gonna be like, I'm not gonna use that word anymore. But this
Yeah, you may as well take out the I and just call it mad because it just made me very
right.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Talk about this, but I think these are conversations, as we talked about, Craig and everybody. These are the conversations that need to be had because if they're not, they just get worse. So we'll be back in 120.
Happy Men's Mental Health Awareness. It's not worth it. A little over a year ago exactly, in this location, in my car, those were the words I thought about. I didn't think tomorrow was worth it. 1.6 million men attempt suicide every year, and we will never know the amount of men that have thought about it. It's okay to not be okay and still be a man. I sat in my car a little over a year ago for hours contemplating whether or not I should make it to tomorrow. But what I ended up doing was calling a friend, and he was willing to listen. That was one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my entire life, was to let somebody in and let them know that I wasn't okay. But I was still a man. So I shared this story to let you know. I know it might be hard, and I know it might be difficult, but give somebody a chance to listen to your story, because you'd be surprised as to who's willing to listen. Because if you open yourself up to the world will open itself up to you. So take a chance and be kind to yourself if the only thing you did today was survive. You're not alone. I'm here with you. I've fought those battles too. Keep going, and you will be grateful for it.
I want to thank our brother right up front. I don't even know who this guy is. Just found that video. I know Ron. I think it's an extremely powerful video for that.
And where did I see that?
It probably Instagram. I know I saw it on Instagram.
No, it was in our organization somewhere. Somebody.
Yeah, showed it last week.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I showed it last week on last week's show.
Then I reposted it everywhere.
So listen, that's the kind of stuff you're not going to find, in public education or in between commercials of the USC fighting, or it's just
For sure.
You guys talked about so much, and it just made me run down different avenues, because whether it's the healthcare system or government or people's lack of self-awareness, or, you just got problem after problem after problem. But the proposed fix, are you kidding me? You're going to make people drown to death and look like they're perfectly at peace? That's insane.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. The guy said it. I think the thing we need to take away, one of the things we need to take away from all this, is the person who wants to kill themselves, who's a healthy person, needs help too. Yeah,
yes. Oh yeah.
But they need help as well. But here's the thing: the guy in the video needed help. Craig deals with dudes, brothers who need, and sisters who need help. How do you? Anybody who wants to chime in. How do you take that first step? How do you that guy picked up the phone and called a friend? What do you say to the friend? How do you make that first step? Alex, then Jim.
Okay, I think a person who is struggling, mentally and needs to talk to someone but doesn't know who to trust, he needs to find one good friend or a family member that he or she can trust to open up and talk about the issue, what's bothering him, why is he mentally struggling, etc. Because even in a family, even with loving parents and loving siblings, and loving family members and among the friend circle. Not everybody probably would understand somebody's mental struggle if they don't experience that mental struggle themselves. So it's important, in my opinion, to find someone who would listen.
All right, let me. Okay,
from there.
I'm gonna take a page out of Rubio's playbook. Just threw up a little in my mouth. And going to say, I'm going to throw the twist in it. I've seen other videos that are out there, and I've reposted them where people say, you know what? I hear family and friends saying, "Oh, it is so hard to hear my sister, cousin, brother, sister struggling with mental illness or struggling with anxiety or depression. I don't want to burden them anymore. So I'm going to just keep it to myself." And as we've said on this show before, it's the quiet ones that you got to be careful. With that little twist, Jim, what do you think? Does your thought change at all?
Say it again. Is it a question? Because my question. No, my question is the original question is, what's your suggestion? If somebody said to you, Jim, I struggle. How do I reach out to somebody? So they're already reaching to me, and
right. Let's say they're looking for you to do it for advice, or if somebody's out here, if somebody's watching our show tonight and has struggled, what I'm trying to do is give him or her a tool. But my little caveat is, they're sitting there thinking, you know what? I hear that, my family sits here and says, oh man, Jim's or Joe's always complaining about this, that, and the other thing is depression, is anxiety. It's really troubling for me.
All right, you could stop right there. So Alex is right. You got to find somebody that you can trust. And there's a good chance it's not going to come from inside your immediate family, which is not a big deal. But I mean, I'm talking to a few people right now that are not family, they're friends, they're struggling. And I owe a lot to you guys and all the other people that we, are committed to this topic, where I've gotten to the point where I feel like I'm helping multiple people through conversations, just reaching out to them and say, how you doing? Like Craig talked about in our training, you know what I mean? Just keep it real. How are you doing? And see what it is that they probably need help with, A lot of times it's substance abuse. A lot of times it's alcohol, What?
Here, my question to you is, okay, you said you reached out. How did you reach out? What was your first, just using you as the example for somebody? If you don't mind sharing.
Reconnecting like you and I reconnected, Yeah. I'm friends with a lot of my brother, John, that took his own life. I'm friends with a lot of his friends, and some of those guys struggle too. So,
all right, great. How about you? What do you say, Nick, the Green Beret?
Man, all the guys that I know that have ever done it, been in the situation I was in, I didn't tell anybody shit. I dealt with that stuff on my own, bro. I don't even know how to take the first step. Now I've called guys that I know, just randomly. I had a guy call me randomly last November and was like, he was in a Hurt Locker, man. He was pretty bad off. And so I just talked to him on the phone, man. I don't say anything about it. I just talked to him on the phone. I think that's the biggest part, man. You just want somebody to talk to, man. I think, Jim's right. I think there's a lot of components to this. I think some people just feel like they're trapped in their own head. I think some people are probably boozing it up. I would assume that alcohol probably is the biggest factor, or most of it is a big factor.
It is.
And then I would say once that happens, like every time I've been called late at night, it's been somebody that's like just hammered. Right. And that's a cultural thing where I came from. It's a cultural thing where Craig came from. Like I've had I think I had a drink. Like when I mean a drink, like I took a beer and took one drink and was like, oh, and I just didn't like the beer. But that's the first drink I've taken in like 2.5 years was Sunday when I went to dinner. Right. And so and I didn't quit drinking because I was an alcoholic or had a problem. I just stopped drinking. It just it's not my thing anymore. I don't care if I go out and guys have beers. I don't care if guys go out and get hammered. I don't care. I'll do, but I just personally don't want to do that anymore. But I've made some very bad decisions when I've been drunk too, right? So I think it goes into that. Like, I don't know how I personally cannot tell you how I would talk to somebody about my issue because I didn't for years. For years, I never told anybody about that. Right?
All right.
I just decided in my own mind,
I have a question for Nick
in front of another.
I have a question, Nick, because you shared a lot. It was last show, wasn't it? Or a show before?
Yeah, show before.
You shared a lot. And I know you said some things about the military and how, toxic it can be. So how much of you, it's not that you didn't want to talk to somebody, but it just, was it any of that a military effect, you think?
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Oh, my God.
You don't want to talk about that. That is
no, I didn't say I wanted to talk about it.
You want to know who reinforced stigma? It was the Department of Defense. We created stigma.
But the reason that there's a lot that goes into that, right? And part of it is like,
well, your personal experience. You said you went to the psychiatrist at the VA.
Well, that's when I came back after after a deployment. I went to him, and
I mean, that knucklehead. What did he say to you?
Like, basically, like, you're good. Just go out of your house and figure it out. But
rub some dirt on it.
Rub some dirt on it.
A big reason that guys don't say anything about it, man, and it's not just so you hear this all the time. This is the biggest bullshit line that people put out there, right? Is that, hey, man, if you're in the military and you have mental health problems, go get it done. It will not affect your security clearance at all. That is a lie.
Yeah.
That is a lie. So they've asked me, like, I came home from my first trip to Afghanistan, my first ever combat rotation in 2005, and I got a divorce. And I went and seen a counselor for marriage counseling. And so when I put that down on my clearance, they were like, why did you go to counseling? Why were you there? Oh, I had a counter intel guy. Like, why were you in counseling? I came back from a 7-month deployment, right? That there was some craziness that went on, and I was going through a shitty divorce, and this wasn't going well. So I decided to seek out going to counseling. And it was like, well, is that all you went for was marriage counseling? And I was like, yeah. Were you sure you didn't go for psychological reasons? And I was like, no. But after that,
they should automatically send you there after that. Good Lord.
After being chastised like that in a security clearance interview, I'm never going back to counseling again, dude. Ever. I might go back after a trip once or twice, but I am never going back to counseling. And that in itself, right? Then you hear all these generals. I love it, man. You hear all these generals and statesmen and all these dudes in the Pentagon, like,
all that.
I'm General so-and-so, and I've got mental health counseling. 2 words for that.
Sergeant Major Chandler. Remember Sergeant Major Chandler?
Yeah, he never. I'm telling you, that guy did not do it.
He would get on the stage and promote, go get your wellness, do this, do that, yada, yada, yada. And the moment you do it, the worst unit in the U.S. Army, are you ready? You're going to love this. I hope they're freaking listening. The worst unit is the 902nd Military Intelligence Counter Intel Unit. The second that you go, if you have a top secret SCI clearance or a Yankee White, and you seek mental health treatment, they show up. They're right at your door. What you talk about? It's insanity. It reinforces the stigma, and it's insane. Oh my God, I remember talking down this kid. It was bad. It was really bad. Nobody was in harm's way. He had a gun in his hand. Everything worked out. I got him in the ambulance. I got him to the hospital, and I sent him to a place called Boulder Crest Retreat. They got one in Arizona, one in Virginia. It was awesome. He was there for a couple of months, and I talked to the commander. I said, hey, man, put the kid on convalescent leave. He's like, you got it. So for 2 months, he put this kid on convalescent leave so he can get his mind straight, because the stuff that he did downrange was pretty rough. The stuff he saw was rough. And when he came back, he had better insight. He felt great. He had training. He did the Warriors Walk. He did the PATH training, the post-traumatic growth training. He did it all, and he was ready to go. Now, when you go off to treatment, by regulation, your clearance is suspended. Oh, yeah. Now, it's done for a reason. Now, the commander, when the kid got back, he's like, I'm going to chapter him. I'm like, what? Why? He's like, well,
you're going to what him?
He's going to chapter him, meaning you get kicked out. Now, if you get kicked out of the Army, you have 3 conditions: less than honorable, general, or bad conduct. The kid's been in the Army for years. He's put so much, he invested so much. It's insane. So to breach this question and to actually attack it, it's very, very simple. When guys call me, and guys, you got to know something, man. And I hope everybody's watching this. I get calls every day. Every time somebody calls me and they're in duress, or they might not be in duress, but they're teetering on that. I'm hurting. As soon as they call, the first thing I say is, "Hey, man, thanks for calling."
Mm-hmm.
It's easy, and that's part of the conversation. And then we start talking, and then as we're going, I'm listening. You have to have active listening. You got to pay attention. You got to validate. And then in my position, I figure out a coping mechanism that is unique to the individual. I've got a kid that lives down the road from me, 5 minutes down the road. He was in the Marine unit, 2-1 Marine Force Recon. This kid saw a lot in Afghanistan and Iraq. He has lost 9 members of his unit to suicide, and they're not even in the Marines anymore. The last guy I talked to was on the phone. It was 3 o'clock Arkansas time, 1 o'clock his time, and he shot himself over the phone. So this poor kid, and he's young. He's 28 years old. He called. He's like, "Craig, I'm in a bad place." I was like, "Come on over." I was like, "What do you want to do?" Because I need to get out of here. So we went up to the mountains. I told him, I said, "When you go to the mountains, sit on the tailgate of your truck and just scream. Let that echo heal you." And that was a very unique coping mechanism. And it worked for him because he loved the outdoors. The one thing he loved the most was just playing catch. So we'll sit in my backyard, throwing a baseball back and forth, sipping on bourbon, just playing catch. We won't say a freaking word for 2 hours because that's his coping mechanism. And I wait for him to say, "All right, brother, I'm good now. Thank you." That's it. You've got to figure out in the conversation when you're talking to those people, and it's going to happen, figure out what keeps them on the straight and narrow. And it has to be unique. Now, it could be something that's kind of common with other folks, but you make it unique for them because every situation I get involved in. And 2 weeks ago, I had an 18-year-old tribal kid. And tribal folks don't talk to people who are not in tribe. They don't. However, I served with his dad, and he reached out. He goes, "Hey, man, my kid attempted suicide with my gun, his gun. He didn't know how to charge it. He didn't know that you had to pull the slide back to put a round in the chamber." So I met up at a coffee shop here in Lewiston, Idaho. And I asked the ladies, like, "Hey, I want to do this in the back room. Can it be private?" Like, "No problem, Craig, whatever you need." And that's another part you got to do in your community. You got to have those relationships to when you show up and say, "I need a favor," they help you out. So we had the back room all to ourselves. The entire family showed up. 18 years old, still lives at home. So I told mom and dad, "You will be present." Because this conversation is going to be harder than the sex talk. 100%. I mean, it really is. So we sat there and I introduced myself. I made it clear that I am not a counselor. I'm not going to diagnose. I'm not going to prescribe. And in my opinion, that eliminates, people are reluctant to talk to a provider because of those fears. You're going to talk to me for 45 minutes, or give me a pill, send me on my way, diagnose me with whatever disorder, and I'm going to have a hard time finding a freaking job from that point on. I don't do that. That's why guys are less reluctant to talk to me. I'm going to tell them the freaking truth. So we sat there. His little sister was there. Because when dad said, "Oh, he's got a little sister and she's 16, I was like, "Make sure she's there." He's like, "Why?" I was like, "Trust me." What I did was I told the kid very clearly. I looked right at him. I looked right at him and said into his face, I was like, "Hey, brother." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Vincent, I'm glad you don't know how to use a gun." And to hit him, he's like, "Oh, that's why we're here." Because nobody told him. I said, "Don't. It's fine." He didn't leave. He didn't freak out. And I said, "What do you love?" He's like, "Well, I love this. I love that." I said, "Okay, cool. What don't you love? What do you hate?" And he made it very clear. He's like, "I hate the fact that I am not contributing to my family." I was like, "What do you want to do?" He goes, "Well, I don't know." I was like, "Dude, you're 18. You're not supposed to freaking know."
Exactly.
That's another, you know what I mean? That's another social norm that we put on kids. You're 18 years old. You graduated. What's your plan? Hell if I know. Shit. I mean, I might join the military. I don't know. I just graduated 47 seconds ago, and you're bombarding me with this insanity, And so we started talking, everything else, and he just vented. He opened up. In that conversation, I found out the younger sister had issues. She's taking pills. I was like, "Hey, darling, there is no such thing as a safe pill anymore, especially states that border states that allow legal marijuana, because fentanyl is out there. It's rampant. It's insane." We had a great conversation. Mom, who didn't talk for like 45 minutes, we were there for 2.5 hours. and there was something I said, and I don't want to say it over this because it was very personal. But when I made it clear, and I figured out where his mind was, I figured out where dad was, the little sister and mom, who was just stoic. I mean, she is of tribal inheritance, if you will. She's part of the chief's clan kind of thing. And she looked at me and she's like, you really care about my son, don't you? I said, of course I do. And she started crying, and it worked out. The next day, I get a call with someone who wanted to partner with me. I brain dumped her because she was a tool. And she said, hey, can you tell me about your last situation? I said, well, I dealt with a kid who was 18 years old, yada, yada, yada. I dealt with him yesterday. She goes, oh, you mean Sunday? I was like, yeah. She goes, well, how long? 2.5 hours. She goes, you wasted 2.5 hours of your life for one person? I was like, I've taken all day for one person, man. We're not going to collaborate. We're not going to work together. You are not in the right frame of mind that I need for what I do. Have a nice day. Are you kidding me? And that's my challenge, is dealing with that shit.
Wasted, she said.
Yeah,
exactly.
Wow.
So to answer the question that Ed has, when someone calls you to reach out, do you know how much courage that takes?
Right.
It's huge, because you are letting go of all your vulnerabilities. And with that simple, hey, how you doing? Hey, man, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. You're not doing great. Thanks for calling. What's up, brother?
Right.
There you go.
The two things that we're up on the hour. This is great stuff. You guys were killing it tonight. I thought it was a real heavy episode. Two of the big takeaways I'm getting is, one is, if you get the call, you got to be receptive, because to Craig's point, it took a lot for that person to call you, and if they called you for a reason, because they're in need of something. So be receptive to that need, even if you don't want it, because if you don't accept the charges on the call,
but you don't always have to wait for calls. You could make calls. You could send people texts. You could reach out to that person that you haven't in months and months. You know what I mean?
You'd be surprised with a simple question. And I had it in a grocery store, and I use that analogy a lot. The guy that's staring at the broccoli. If you just ask that simple question with true benevolence and look at him and say, hey, man, are you okay? Mm-hmm. You'd be surprised how receptive they become. Like, well, what do you mean? What did you notice? You just ask, are you okay? What's up? You want to talk? Want to go grab a beer? Fine, let's go grab a beer. What's up? Just ask the question, are you okay? It works.
And the other thing we need to start to help, the other stigma that I heard out of this is the guys that have come out of the military. Nick and Craig, you guys both hit on it. Going to therapy or getting help is not in your vocabulary. But these guys that are out, we talk about the veterans that are out, that veteran suicide is up. We need to, somehow that needs to be destigmatized.
Yeah. Do you want to know why? Because in the military, you were guilty before innocent. I assure you.
Wow. That's
Nick, am I lying?
Nick, what would you say to that?
So I'm gonna make a lot of people mad when I make this statement.
We got a whole nother show in front of us.
Hit some off, dude. Go forward. Do great things. Shit.
Hey, man, it might bring more people to our show.
This is the deal, man. Like, I'm a veteran, right? And I get really angry at a lot of guys that are veterans because they believe that someone owes them something. And if you walk into it, and this is why I'm going to wrap this around, right? And so they walk into the VA and the VA plays into that. Well, you're a victim, right? And the VA will chip away at that I'm a victim thing every day, right? A veteran is his own worst enemy. It's a fact, man. The veterans are their own worst enemies. They come out of the military and they're like, hey, I went to war. Here, I'll give you a breakdown. I was in E8 in the Army. So the highest you can go is an E9, right? I'm an E8 in the Army. I'm a company ops guy. I'm running the company for the sergeant major and the commander. We have 9 teams spread over 2 provinces or 2 states, and we're in charge of it. I'm signed for like $2 billion worth of equipment. I can make decisions in a flash moment that will cost people their lives or not cost people their lives, depending on how you do it. And then you get out of the military and people are like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. right? And if you go, I had no college degree. I didn't have a bachelor's degree at the time. I didn't have a master's degree at the time, right? And so you go into that realm and you're talking, and the crazy part about that is that no company in the world is going to give you a job that puts you in charge of $2 billion worth of equipment without some sort of a degree or some sort of like, well, what did you really do? Right. And so those dudes get out, and it's like Rambo is as a cliche as this is going to sound. Rambo is completely accurate. That guy was trained to kill things that would make and eat things that will make a billy goat puke. And that dude can survive off the land, and he has done things that he hopes to God no one else has to see and or do. And that is his training. He comes into the civilian world, and it's one of those like, well, sorry, man, we got nothing for you. Great, you were in the infantry. Great, you were a special forces guy. That translates to absolutely nothing on the outside world. And so
you're an assassin.
Yeah, right. And so that's it goes back to the same thing. Like, why did Rambo continually go to war, and they pull him back in and keep sending him? Because that's who he was. That's what those guys do. That's what they know. I have a good friend of mine that he calls me every time, and he's like, he can't hold a job down. And so veterans are their own worst enemy, right? And you can't make that transition. It's very hard. You as an SF guy, as a team sergeant or a team guy, you're a senior NCO, you're in charge of all this stuff, you're doing all this. And then you get to the civilian world and people are just like, we don't care. None of that translates because you cannot translate it to us. And that is the biggest failure of the Department of Defense, is that we are not translating what we do in the world of the military over to the civilian side. So then what do these guys do? They can't get a couple job, or they go work and they can't figure out why the civilian life is so much different to everywhere else. And then it's, well, I'm a victim, right? And we love that language in this country. Well, I'm a victim. I'm a victim. And so then the VA pulls into it and goes right into what Craig said. They start throwing drugs at you. They start throwing all kinds of different stuff at you. But and I agree with Doc and Chef in there. She's like, when we're talking about throwing drugs at you, bro, we're already too late. We got to get this upstream. How does she say it? Doc says, we got to get this upstream, not downstream, right?
Yes.
And that is the problem, is that we are trying to combat suicide downstream. When dudes are already flailing in the water, and when you try to jump in and save them, they're going to try to pull you down with them. You got to get it upstream when they're still in the canoe or the kayak or the boat or whatever.
Exactly.
When they're out of the water and they're drowning, man, it's hard to save a drowning victim. Drowning victims will try to kill you because they want to save themselves. And that's where inherently the problem lies, is we do not try to save these guys until they're so far downriver it's not even funny. Right? That is the number one problem.
Right.
You're right, Nick. We got to look at the contributing factors that are pushing them in the freaking water in the first place. And it's contributing factors of the non-physical and physical. There are people that actually push people in that direction for suicide. You want to know why? So I don't get bothered with it. And that's the problem. Asking that question, are you okay? A lot of folks will not do that in fear of, is it going to hinder me in my life? What's it going to do? It's happened with my wife. When I see a guy and I see what's going on, she's like, come find me. She knows what I'm doing, man. She takes off. She goes, finishes her shopping, moves out so I can talk to this dude. What's up, man? Why are you staring at broccoli? Why are you just standing there all stoic? If I'm out with the guys, whatever, we're having a drink, and I see a dude by himself at the bar for a long time while we're there, I'm going to sit next to him and go, hey, man, why are you drinking by yourself? You just ask the hard question. You'd be surprised people's responses. It's been very rare. I would say 1 out of 100,000 where people are like, leave me the frog far alone. You don't know me. Stop getting involved in my business. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, but you just kind of made your business public. You just have to be talented enough, if you will, to whatever they say, use it for them and not against them. And that's what the problem with the military. That's what I mean by guilty before innocent. When I came forward after my ex-wife got arrested and was indicted on 2 felony counts of domestic violence, and it hit the blotter in the reporting system, and every freaking senior leader on the base found it the next morning, every single person, to include the chief of staff of the Military Intelligence Corps, calls me and says, Craig, why didn't you tell me that you were a victim of domestic violence? I was like, oh, yeah? Would you have done it? He's like, yeah, good point. Yeah, you're right. So when that happened, it was like, oh crap, we're screwing up. We're not doing it right. And we only fixed it on one base. Fort Worth, Arizona actually fixed it out of all the bases globally. You know what that tells me? No one else wants to participate. It's kind of like Nick said. We don't need you. We're going to victimize the crap out of you. We're going to convince you that you're going to get a kick-ass job when you get out because you did 20 plus years and you're a badass, you're this, you're that. Ooh, yada, yada. You were accountable for billions of dollars worth of equipment. I had to tell a CEO what maneuver mobility support officer meant for 5th Group. Like, what is that? I was like, well, I assigned combat missions. For who? I can't tell you. There's that, right, Nick? Am I lying?
Right. No, man.
I'm sure Nick has non-commissioned officer evaluation reports just like I do that say 2 words or 1 word. Classified.
It's just one of those things, man. And
it's a side effect of service, but we're not teaching these guys appropriately in the Soldier for Life program and the Transition Assistance Program how to actually enter the civilian workforce. And if they're already at risk, we're throwing them out to the wind, and they say this, the VA will take care of them. Well, there's some bullshit right there. Because they're going to give you a bag of medications. They call it, don't forget your bag on your way out. Like, what bag? It's full of benzodiazepines, pain medications, because you must have pain because you're all jacked up. Oh, sleep medication, because you probably struggle with sleep. Yeah, of course I do. I have dreams. Oh, okay, with that, we're going to help your PTSD, yada, yada, yada. Oh, and here's a 3-month refill supply. Have a nice day. So you can be out of sight, out of mind.
Wow.
That's the problem. With veterans.
Right.
That's the problem with veterans.
But I would say it's, Jim, I would say it's the same on the civilian world.
So as a civilian,
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's no different. Maybe they, prescribe 2 of each of those pills to the vet. I don't know, but it just is crazy to hear you guys talk about it because, like, it just boils down to, all right, you're in there. They scramble your head really, really good and condition you to be a certain way, and then when you're done, they just spit you out and expect you to assimilate and, don't worry about your head or taking care of your mentals, as one of my friends calls it. He says, taking care of your mentals, we're just going to throw a bunch of pills at you. And if you really get to the point where you're done with life, then you can go to certain countries and just kill yourself.
Nick's going to love this. We were given bags of, are you ready? It's called Ranger candy. Nick, what's Ranger candy?
Well, it's like ibuprofen, dude.
800 milligrams of ibuprofen. And the most you're supposed to take is a 2,400 milligram per day. Guess how much?
How much?
2,400 milligrams. When I was going through selection, holy shit. They give me a bag of Ranger candy. I felt nothing. Nothing. Until it wore off. And you're like, holy crap, why does everything hurt?
You probably have stomach problems.
Yeah.
The civilian world's no different, man. I mean, if you look at like diazepams, look at how many people are on Valium, dude.
Oh yeah. Mental addiction is insane.
How many people are on Wellbutrin, right? It's
Xanax.
There's no difference. Right? I can talk about it from the military side because that's where I was, but the civilian side's no different, man. And I would say in today's day and age of like, we don't want to offend anybody as a counselor, it's probably really hard. Like could you imagine me being a counselor? Like, hey, dude, you need to actually go out.
I could too. You're gonna have to be open to counseling and the power of counseling. I mean, Craig goes above and beyond. You're like an angel, going up to strangers in bars. But you can absolutely, Nick. I mean, you're already, in a way, you've counseled me. I don't know if Ed and the other guys feel the same way, but
Nick, you're counseling guys right now as we do this show.
Yes.
Nick, you're the guy.
This is my bottom statement, right? Life isn't puppy dog tails and sugar candy every day. Right? It sucks. There's some days it sucks. And some days life is hard for months on end. Sometimes life sucks for years. Sometimes you have to stand on your head for 25 minutes, which might need 2 years to get through what you need to get through. Sometimes your job sucks, but guess what? It's bringing you in money, and you can do something during those 2 years to figure out how you get out of it.
Yeah.
However, in the end, I don't think that the overall counseling world these days is telling people that thing. I think that we're just patting them on the head and saying, hey, everything will be okay. Bullshit. You got to go out and
No,
sometimes
that's
grab
not
life
true.
by the
That's
horn.
not true, Nick. You don't have enough. You don't have enough experience being in therapy. I call it therapy. I don't call it counseling, by the way. But you can
You're
call
right.
it
You're 100% correct. I don't. So I don't know
right.
how that
So,
works.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, I've probably been to 5 different therapists, maybe 6, and yeah, everybody has a different style and way of going about it, but not one of them ever sugarcoated the shit. No. If
That's
anything,
good to know.
they got to be great listeners, like Craig said.
So I'll tell you, when I was still the program manager for the U.S. Army for suicide prevention, I was required, according to my agreement with my job, to see a counselor once a week because of all the crap I was going to see. Guys blowing their heads off in front of me, talking people down, whatever it was. There was only one counselor out of 12 for the entire base that had a top secret clearance. That way I could talk openly. That's another freaking issue with the Department of Defense. They have to have counselors with top secret clearances because you're going to get a dude to get in there, talk about what you just did in whatever freaking country in Africa because he's jacked up. The wife's like, oh my God, he's waking up in the middle of the night. He's screaming. He's this. He's sweating. Yada, yada, yada. And it gets passed on to the commander. The commander has no choice to say, hey, go talk to the therapist. I can't talk to him or her because they don't have a TS clearance.
That's the military.
There you go.
So when we actually had one, I was able to talk openly with her. And I talk to her to this day. I use her as a venting point. But here's what I do with folks when I design their plan, their coping mechanism plan, their safe plan. I make sure they have an accountability partner. And I have found that it's better to have an accountability partner that's not a counselor, that is just someone you can trust. You can vent and tell them anything. And you're just going to let them vent. If you need a punching bag, like when Nick and I talk, when it's just he and I, we're beating the shit out of each other. We literally are. I need a punching bag. He's a punching bag. Nick says, I need a vent. I'm his punching bag. That's what people need to realize, that when someone's blowing up on you, they're not pissed off at you, entitled twit. They just need somebody to vent to validate that they're pissed off. And then, resonate that and say, I understand why you're pissed.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. People are way too sensitive in the reality that just let them freely speak, for the love of Pete.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people have the perception that haven't gone to really good therapists or really good counselors, that they're automatically just going to give you advice and tell you what they think you should do. There is a little bit of that, but like Craig said, you're mostly listening and validating how they're feeling.
Right.
That's
And
really
important.
that's really important.
What I've seen in my trips to the therapist is mine will reframe things for me. Give me a different perspective. Have you thought about it this way? And I'm like, oh, okay. Or she says, and she has, knock that shit off and think about it this way. Because sometimes when you get to the ridiculous, in my opinion, somebody needs to call your bullshit. That if they, once they know you enough, I'm not saying you walk into a therapist day one and they tell you, but if they know you well enough, the therapist should be that person that can show you it from a different perspective, reframe it for you, and say, oh yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. And if you start kind of going down a rabbit hole, they call your bullshit and they stop you before you go, and you're like, no, we're not going here. That's not you. Let's take it to it. Let's do something else.
I was kind of teaching you that and convincing you that you have control of your mind. You can, I get that a lot with kids in school. Right. I can't, or everything annoys them. You know what I mean? It's like she said this about me, laziness. And I'm like, why does that bother you? Well, because she's saying it about me. I said, well, just don't let it bother you. You have control of that. So yeah, it's also like, I consider MD and Chef kind of therapists. just even lifestyle and promoting healthy choices and making, I don't know, a lot of our ADHD could be preservatives and McDonald's and whatever else we're
Pfizer vaccines.
You know, hey, the school lunches aren't good, not good at all. Terrible, really.
It could be all the social media just jumping
Yeah.
around. I mean,
All
they've got think
Yeah.
about this. They've gone from doing long videos on YouTube and everything to now it's all about reels and shorts and stuff like that. And you know, some of the statistics show that reels and nobody watches more than 20 seconds. Why is that? Because they're going like this because there's ADHD. I mean, we're all multitasking.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Ed, because the American Psychological Association is this close to publishing the DSM-6. Right now we're at the 5, right? To identify that digital addiction is real and the side effects are insane. It's ridiculous. But you know, you guys remember when I started talking about the accountability goes on the individual thinking about suicide. And here's why. Remember when I talked about that when I did that class? Here's why. 99% of the crap the person wants to kill themselves over, they created. It's festering, it's building, and they can't control it. And other people are finding out, and they're like, well, what do I do? You know, at the core, when I talk somebody down, I say, okay, what got you to this point? Like, what do you mean? I called you. No, yeah, I got that, but why? You called me. I got that, but what happened? Let me look at the contributing factors.
Right. What led you to call me? Yeah.
Exactly. My dad's beating me. Okay, why is he beating you? Well, you know, I'm 16 years old and I took the trash out and he spanked me. Okay, that's called discipline, you little shit. I will always put the accountability back on the individual. I had a guy who had the trifecta, the relationship, the financial, and the legal. Remember I brought up in the class where he was messing around, got caught by the wife. He's trying to speed home to beat her to get home. He gets busted by the civilian police department. They bust him with the DUI. We do a battle handoff. We take him over, so we bust him for DUI, which is interesting because that's not double jeopardy. The Uniform Code of Military Justice is a sole source for punitive action. Anything that happens on the outside, if you get a DUI in the U.S., in the Army, or in the Department of Defense, it's an Article 111. They can charge you twice.
Wow.
Because you're a service member 24/7. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, he had the trifecta. And by the time he gets home, she finds out, she moves out, whatever. She was the breadwinner. So now he's got financial, issues on top of relationship. Oh, by the way, the legal issues are coming. So when he's holding a gun in his hand, he wanted to kill himself. I'm sitting there talking to one-on-one like this, as far away as I am from my computer right now. And I said, what happened? He said, what do you mean? I said, what got you to this point? Because he was a stellar soldier. This kid was the non-commissioned officer of the year for the base. He was about ready to compete on the major scale. He was talented, but he took that to his head and said, I'm a badass. Nothing can touch me. Let me go mess around. I won't get caught. And I love it when they get caught because I dime them out, man. I kid you not. And I know, Ed, you're freaking out because you got to edit the crap out of this freaking show, but
no,
he's sitting there.
Edit anything.
Okay, he's sitting there with the trifecta. And I called him out. I said, so why is your marriage falling apart? Well, I was messing around with this girl. I go, cool. How did she find out when she walked in on us? Okay, cool. Whose fault was that? And he's like, that was mine. Okay, cool. So you're speeding home. You're off base. You're trying to get to the house on the base before she does for whatever reason. You got busted by the police department. And they busted you for DUI. Whose fault is that? He's like, yeah, that's mine too. Cool. Then you go home. She cleans out her shit. She bails on you. She's the breadwinner. Now you have 2/3 of the money coming into your house doesn't exist anymore. Whose fault is that? Like, mine. I said, and I've got the commander outside waiting for me to walk you out. We're going to take you down. You're going to see the wizard. You're going to get admitted because you have serious suicidal tendencies. I'm going to take that gun, et cetera, et cetera. And when you get back, what do you think is going to happen? I'm probably going to get busted down in private. Yeah. And whose fault is that? He's like, mine. I said, and you want to kill yourself because of everything you created inside of an 8-hour motherfucking period.
Oh my God.
He's like, okay, dang, you got me first arm. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me. I'm just the dude talking you down. But my point is, anytime we're out there and people are talking about ending their life for whatever reason, and remember, for whatever reason it is, it's unique to them. It might be common to us, but our perception is not the reality. The accountability is on them. Say, well, why do you want to kill yourself? Well, I have financial issues. Why? Well, I'm a gambler. All right. And that should do us a light bulb in your brain going, okay, I need to find somebody who can deal with addiction. It's plain and simple.
All right.
And that's, you just get that, guys, by just having a conversation. Anybody listening, talk to people, have a conversation, validate, don't freaking judge them, don't compare, and do not tell your life story. It's not about you. I always ask permission to say, hey, man, I have something relatable. Can I share it with you?
Good stuff. Great stuff, guys. We're coming up on 90 minutes. This is a great show. It needs to be talked about. As we said, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with everybody's final thoughts, and then we'll close this show out. Again, you guys doing a great job tonight. Stuff that needs to be talked to. I want to thank everybody out there at Facebook, YouTube. We're on Instagram Live now. I've started that. I think that's working. I saw Dave Bradley watching out there. Thank you, Dave, for watching, and a handful of other people watching out there. Hopefully it's coming across as well as it does on anything. Taking a break, and we'll be right back.
This tip is on a DuckDuckGo chatbot that won't be trained on your data. DuckDuckGo wants to demonstrate that it's possible to host privacy-protecting AI chatbots. The company pulled this off by reaching deals with chatbot providers such as OpenAI and Anthropic to forbid them from training their AI models using the queries from DuckDuckGo users. To create another layer of protection, DuckDuckGo will also submit its own IP address rather than user's IP address with each chat inquiry made. In addition, DuckDuckGo does not save or store any chats, the company said. To respond with answers and ensure all systems are working the underlying model, providers may store chats temporarily. But there is no way for them to tie back to you personally, since all metadata is removed. This tech tip for a great show called Decades is brought to you by Alex on Tech.
Thank you, Alex, for that great tech
You're
tip.
welcome.
That is
I just
awesome.
like
Love
what you
how-
said. Go.
Yeah. I love how he says this great show on Decades. All right, guys. We're coming up on 90 minutes, as I said right before the break. Great show tonight. Great show. Let's have some final thoughts. I'm just going to go around the room. Nick, what are your final thoughts on this show where it was a lot of mental health stuff?
Well, it's good, man. I think we're just, getting the word out to guys, man. And I think that, the more people that hear this and understand that they're not the only dudes with a problem, man, and they can reach out to people. I mean, take the first step.
Exactly.
You're not alone.
Not alone. How about you, Jim?
Oh man, I wasn't even thinking I was going to be on tonight, and then we made the right decision to bring another colleague on, so it lightened the load, and we got out early, and I raced home. Just more, it wasn't about topics. I didn't even know what we were going to talk about. It was just wanting to talk to you guys and promote talking to each other, because I think that that's really important, because we live obviously in a really fucked up world. I can say that, right?
Yeah, you can.
Yes.
I checked the box when we publish these. I checked the box.
All right.
Not for kids. Alex, what say you in the Democratic state of California?
Well, well, I say everyone needs to be able to find somebody who would listen to you when you have any mental issues, and also you should be able to listen to people who have their issues and understand them, and talk to them, and maybe talk to someone else who can help them.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Amen.
Greg Hannum, our expert on this topic. What's your parting thought for tonight?
I'll tell you this. I've never been suicidal, but I have been depressed. I've been in a wheelchair for months, couldn't see, couldn't walk. Took another 6 months to learn how to walk again. I get it. And with the reason why I'm saying that is I battle my demons every single night. I get invaded in my brain every night. And it took me a minute to figure out the coping mechanisms. You have to be able to talk about it freely. And my coping mechanism, when I have the bad dreams at night, not alcohol. It's actually Frosted Flakes, believe it or not. Here's why I say that, and I'll be quick with this. When you have a bad dream, and it's not a bad dream that's a fantasy, like I'm being chased by dragons, all this crap. No, when you have a recollection, you're reliving what you did in combat. You're literally telling yourself, do not go left. Do not go left. but you're just watching. You're an observer, and it's happening in real time. What happens is the brain starts to lose glucose, the sugar. It's using that to energize that deal. And I learned that from my therapist, Dr. Lamacchia. I hope she's watching. She's brilliant. She said, Craig, when that happens, if it's phase 2, because I have 3 phases, if it's phase 2, go upstairs, grab a bowl of Frosted Flakes, watch Seinfeld or Friends or something mindless. And when the sugar reintroduces the body, it's actually a benefit of sugar when it comes to that topic.
Yeah.
But you got to find your coping mechanisms, and I am happy to help you design them because it'll be all about you and nobody else. Just make sure you got a good support system because that's important. I've never met any one of you guys in person, but I know I love you dearly.
Yep.
And that's what we got to do. We got to get guys to be able to say, I can speak freely about my feelings. I don't give a shit what you think, but I love you, brother.
Love you too.
That's awesome. Love you too. Great. That is awesome. And 3 things that I want everybody to kind of 3 takeaways I've got, and it come from all of you tonight. Nick said it kind of best, is like, there are going to be shit days, period. It's going to be shit days, but you just have to live through it, and you have to get through it, and you can. We all know that. They're all, shit days happen, and we have to be able to, you just get through them. They're not permanent. The second thing is if that friend calls, as Craig has said, you got to pick up and say, you got to be open, you got to listen, or whatever it takes, and you got to be that person that can help. And thirdly is, if you're struggling, help is no longer a 4-letter word. That's bad. You need to go get it. And I know, there are some people, as a sub 60, help was not in my vocabulary, and it's still a struggle for me. I've got friends who I would drive crazy because I don't ask for help. I would not, true story, I'd be in a grocery store, things would be on the top shelf. I would either climb the shelf, or if not, I would go without. Get help if you need it. It's okay.
It's okay to ask for help.
It's okay to ask for help, and
I agree.
Go and also just jumping on what the last thing that Craig said. When we say love about stuff, that's vulnerability. Vulnerability equals strength. And showing you're vulnerable, that's how you grow. I didn't understand that for the longest time, and I'm slowly starting to get it. So I want to thank you, Nick, Alex on tech, Jim, Craig. You guys all made the Canadian participant of the show, because you all brought it tonight, and it was 90 minutes of, what is it? The way you like to say, Craig, the tough topic. The tough question. The toughest topic. We spent 90 minutes talking about the toughest topic, and we stated about 20, 21 viewers the whole time. Plus, we were on Instagram, and we had about 7 over there. And I want to thank everybody from YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook for watching us. Join us next week, and we'll be back. Who knows who's going to be on here? We don't know week to week, but that's the enjoyment of it. Thank you, everybody, and we're going to close it out with that. Cheers to everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm out of water.